First Ferrari supercar, Porsche freaks out. They're like, this can't happen. You know, we need to get in on this deal. So they're working kind of behind the scenes. That 288 came out first, and it's racing, showing off itself, and this thing's kind of being worked on. You know, what's Porsche going to do to answer the question on that? Here you go, Porsche 959. Not only did it answer the question, it destroyed it. I mean, now you got a car that's almost 200. I mean, some of the sport versions actually exceeded 200, way over the 300 mile per hour at the time. 0 to 60 in 3.6 seconds. Now it's a 450 horsepower car, quite a bit more horsepower than the 288 with a smaller engine, basically 2.3 I think in this car. No, it's the same, about 2.8, but when I say smaller, V8, 6-cylinder. So here's a 6-cylinder engine that's got more horsepower than a V8 turbo. And not only that, the car can ride 100 miles an hour plus off-road, 4-wheel drive. It's just an amazing accomplishment. Basically, Porsche said, you know what, we need to make a car that's going to completely destroy this 288. And this is the 959 as a result. So I'm going to open it up, show you guys a little bit about this, start it up. I'm actually going to raise the car. You hardly ever see that. There's actually hydraulic things here to raise the car up in the air. Raise it up 3 inches so you can drive it off-road, not up in the air. Maybe they would have done that if they had more time. So let me open up the front and back here. Just show you how advanced this car is. Guys, some of you guys might have heard Bruce Canepa. He's up in Scotts Valley. He modifies these 959s and he gets like 900 horsepower on these cars without even changing the displacement of the engine. So it shows you how advertised, how well designed these cars were. This is a very original car. This car has won quite a few shows. You can see I have the original tools in here. Never been used. Not sure one has white leather gloves that have never been used either, but they're in there too. I guess when you change your tire, you want to make sure you're wearing white leather gloves. Carbon Kevlar body, pretty advanced for the time, similar materials to 288, just a way more advanced car, and I guess pretty embarrassing for Ferrari when this car came out because this car did everything better than the 288. And obviously, they had to do something. We'll get to that next. But I'm going to start it up. I'll raise the suspension. Again, it's going to be a little quiet because it's a turbo car, so you're not going to hear a lot of sound coming out of it. But I'll try to raise it up so you can kind of see how that looks. And then we'll lower it back down, and then we'll go for the questions. Okay, so a couple of things about this. You notice that suspension going up and down. There's no way that 288 is going to do that. The smoke you saw coming out when I first started it, that's kind of normal for these engines. What happens is it's not anything wrong with the engine. When the car sits for a while, it's a flat 6 that sits very low in the car. So over time, the oil kind of gets into the cylinders and kind of seeps through over time. So when you first started, that oil kind of burns off. So that's what you saw there. Again, you saw the suspension revving up. Pretty unusual to be able to drive this car on the dirt. The wheels are completely hollow. The entire wheel is pressurized. It's center lock nuts on these cars. These actually come off with a tool. You can see the center lock, nothing like that on the 288. The whole wheel's hollow, so if the wheel breaks, you lose pressure in the wheel, and the lock goes off in the car. Just amazing technology that far beyond the 288, and in my opinion, an embarrassment for Ferrari when this car came out, and that's why we'll talk about the next car, what their answer was to that. So, we actually have 3, I think, for this one. Let me double check. Yep. So, we will choose 3 winners for this, and let's go for it. Let me start down here first, because I know I've been kind of ignoring this side of the audience a little bit. Any questions down here? Yeah. Going on in the 80s. So he couldn't drive the car, gave it to his friend, and I bought it from his friend. That car's been in storage for 25 years. 25 years. So that car's never been driven in the dirt. Probably really never been driven at all. I think it only has 2,000 miles on the car. So it's a pretty good specimen. So yeah, good question. Appreciate that. Yeah. What would I rate the Porsche out of all my cars? I have a lot of cars. I have about 20 cars. I am a Porsche fan. I like Porsches because I think they do better on the road. They do better on the track. They're just a better design car than the Ferraris. I mean, I've taken all these cars on the track. How would I rate it? I would rate it probably in the top 5 of my cars, mainly because of the significance of the car, being a supercar from the 80s. All the reasons you guys asked me about supercars before, the technology of the car, but again, getting back to the engineers, I'm going to talk about engineers a little bit, which I happen to be an engineer, it's the best car they can do. Basically, unlimited budgets, and it just fits all that supercar ideas. Good question. Yeah. Yeah, how does the driving experience of the 959 compare to the other Group B cars? When I drive the 959, it almost feels identical to me as driving a McLaren 720. I mean, it's a 1988 car. It's so smooth. It's got double shocks on each wheel. I mean, the thing's built like an apartment building. It's just unbelievable. They built these cars. I think they put about $500,000 into each car, and they sold them for a fraction of that because people couldn't afford them. But I would say that car drives like a modern car in every way. It doesn't lean. It doesn't. It goes up bumpy roads super smooth. Compared to the F40, it's like a luxury car, a luxury sports car. So again, I've had people drive that car and drive it in, they said, this just feels like my McLaren. It's unbelievable for a 1988 car. Good question. Yeah. Yeah, the question is, what made me want to do this? Not necessarily the presentation today, but to get all these cars together. I think it's that passion my dad had, getting back to that. I think he always said, you know what, share what you have. Try to get the best and share it. My dad was really like that. When he passed away, my mom said, there's not going to be anybody at his funeral, you know. There was hundreds of people showed up at my dad's funeral. Just the number of people he touched, and I think that passion that he had came back to me to try to get the very best. I mean, being an engineer, I invented a lot of things. I was the chief engineer on the F-22 fighter jet, all sorts of stuff I invented. But that passion for engineering and to do the very best, I think that's why I selected these cars as the very best that engineers can do from those companies, given no money limits. Yeah. Yeah, what's my favorite type of engine to drive? We started with the V8, one of the 6-cylinder. I would probably have to say V12. Yeah, and we're going to get to that. So there happens to be a V12 here with 4 turbos. So that's kind of hard to beat. So we're going to get to that car near the end. But a good question. I would say probably the V12, and I think, you know, Porsche kind of went back to the drawing board. They were going to do an all-electric car for Mission X. And the customer's like, you know what, we don't get an all-electric car for Supercar. Let's do something more cool with it. So I'm kind of curious to see what Porsche does. Maybe they'll bring the V10 back from the current GT. I don't know what they're going to do, but they're kind of reevaluating that. Yeah, right here. Anything besides cost of maintenance that I don't like about the car? That's a good question. You know, I can't even think of anything I don't like about the car, to tell you the truth. I'm trying to think really hard. I mean, obviously the driving experience is not as good as a modern car, but I can't knock it for that because I bought the car to get that charm back. So I don't dislike that about the car. But I would say, you know, maybe, you know, in this particular car, the suspension you just saw raising up. It took a while to raise up. That would happen in 2 seconds now. So, you know, but those are things you just, you know, that's the way it was. So I can't really say this. I put my mind back in the 80s when I drive these cars, and in that regard, how can you not dislike them? If you put your mind into 2025, then yeah, you'll pick it apart, but that's not what it's about. Yeah? Yeah, how did the 959 influence future Porsche models? That's a good question. Basically, people like, you know, the 911, is it going to go for the next 50 years? Porsche said, yeah, it is. It's going to be, basically, this is our thing to do for the next 50 years. I think it influenced future Porsche models of four-wheel drive, for sure. I mean, there was no other cars doing four-wheel drive. The flat six being low in the chassis to get the handling and being on the rear wheels so it gets good traction. I mean, all the GT3 RS is all flat sixes in the same exact position. I would say that the styling, I mean, the styling that your cars kind of look, you know, and obviously this is a pretty unusual styling, but I would say the four-wheel drive, the flat six, proving that a flat six, water-cooled heads now for the first time. Now all the cars are water-cooled. Twin turbo, they're still making twin turbo cars. So I think it had a huge influence to say, hey, we can still make cars like this in 2025. Yeah? What? Oh yeah, question, somebody knows about the G gear. So there is, if you look at the shifter, it says G, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What's the G? Basically the G was designed to be a super low first gear where you can take off in the dirt. And they called that, I don't know what it actually stands for. Is Elliot here? He would know what the G means. Okay, I need to get Elliot. But yeah, basically it's a super low first gear. I mean, it's called G, I would just call it first, but it's lower than a normal first gear for dirt purposes. Yeah? Does the 959 work as a daily driver? I would say absolutely yes. Yeah, probably more so than any other car here. You can get in this car, super easy to get in and out of, and I would say you could use this car as a daily driver, and probably people at that time did use it for that. Yeah, good question. Yeah. Yeah, good question. So you notice the white wheels on the car, and do I think that matching the car body to the wheel, did that change? It was kind of one of the first cars to do that. A lot of people ask me, Bill, are those wheels made out of porcelain? You know, it's like the first thing you think. It's kind of weird. But I think, yeah, the fact that this car came out with body matching wheels, I think kind of you're starting to see that in some cars now. I mean, it's kind of an unusual thing. You don't see it in a lot in modern cars. But I think people thinking, well, why shouldn't the wheels match the car? That's kind of cool. Yeah, so the question is, this is obviously the retaliation car to the 288. Which side have I been on, Ferrari or Porsche, throughout the years? I know people at the Porsche factory, I know people at the Ferrari factory, they're all good folks. I would say in terms of which side I'm on, if I'm on the track and I want to be the fastest on the track, Porsche would be my first choice. Every time over Ferrari. If I want to show a car, I do a top speed run, more towards Ferrari. The Ferraris always show better at the shows, people love them. I did a high speed event with my Enzo, and it was the fastest car out there. We did 225 miles per hour. So in terms of high speed events, the Ferraris are really good at that kind of stuff. But I would say, you know, they're obviously still competing with each other, but I tend to weigh towards, again, Porsche for track every day, Ferrari more towards exotic, going fast, you know, that kind of stuff. Good question, yeah. You know, these 80 cars, which one do I drive the most? Probably the F40. Yeah, because people ask me to take that. Every time I go to a show, they ask me, Bill, can you take out the F40? And I think for that reason, people want to see it, and we'll get to that car. That's a fun car, especially when they open it up. So to answer your question, I would say the F40 would probably drive the most. Good question. Yeah. Yeah, how often these cars get maintained, which part do I have to maintain the most? They all have to have oil changes, even if you don't drive them, you probably want to oil change them every couple of years, and no more than that. Things that break on the cars, you know, these cars are pretty darn reliable. I haven't really had, mainly oil leaks. If you don't drive the car, you get oil leaks. That's just something you kind of have to live with. So I've fixed oil leaks over the years. So in terms of anything breaking, nothing really breaks on the car, they just get leaks. But yeah, unbelievable how reliable these cars were from the 80s. I'll take one more last question right here. Yeah, is anything interchangeable on the 959 parts versus the other cars? That's a good question. I would say this car was pretty special when it was designed. The carbon Kevlar body, there was no other engines like that. Obviously some of the engine parts, because it was flat six, so a lot of the engine parts would be interchangeable. In terms of body parts, brakes, chassis, I would say very little would be common with any other 911 at the time. The windshield light is even different on this car. There's no other windshields like this. I asked somebody to wrap the windshield on this car. He tried and he couldn't do it. He said, I've done every car, I couldn't wrap the windshield on this car. I'm like, well, what's up with that? And I think, I don't know if he finally did get it going. No, there's no wrap on this windshield. It says something about the contour of the windshield so unusual. It's like no other 911 I've seen. So even down to the glass in the car, this car's pretty unique in that regard. Yeah, good question. Okay, so let's go to the judges here. Get the rewards, and then we're going to ask the judges to point out the winners. Got some serious judging here. Yeah, we're gonna do something. I was able to find 3 different versions of the 959. The first one being an original, in the original boxes. The first one being one of the ones from the 80s or the 90s, I think that one came out. Other one's a little bit newer. That's one of the Paris Dakar Rally thing, and then the last one is a little bit newer one. So we're gonna hand out some of these again in the original boxes, unopened.
Thank you for watching my San Diego Automotive Museum Decades of Trifecta video. This is video number 2 of the Porsche 959. You may also like to watch the other 5 cars in this series. I also have a video of an interview with 1988 BMW M5 and a 1995 Porsche 911 Carrera. Have a great day.